lamentation, bitter weeping. Rachel weeping for her children because what? Enenu, they are not. The coal is the voice of weeping because her children enenu are not. This is the same reaction of refusing to be comforted that Jacob had at the loss of Joseph. The reason Rachel, Ima Rachel, turn to your neighbor and say, Ima Rachel, Ima Rachel, Ima Rachel. No, it's not Arabic, that's Mother Rachel. It sounds Arabic, but it's not. Ima Rachel. Our mother Rachel refuses to be comforted because she says her children are no more. Every translation gives us something to the effect of they are no more. Listen, but the actual Hebrew in this phrase is this, now don't miss this please, is the singular form einenu. The same word Reuben used to describe Joseph, the same word Jacob used to describe Joseph when he found Joseph in the cistern. Listen, why would Rachel weep for her children, plural? Because he, singular, is not.
Oh, wow.
She's weeping for all her children because he is not. Now you lost me because I lost myself. So I know you lost me. Okay? So take those eyes, give it a good rub and say, you'll have chicken in 10 minutes in just 20 minutes, just we wax.
So what you trying to say?
It's a let's call it a soda, brother. Or a remez. But you don't want to miss this because this is better than chicken.
Oh, yes.
Okay? This is better than
Do tell.
a veggie dish. So Rachel's weeping for her children, plural, because he is not. What on earth? Why would she weep for all her children when only one is missing?
No, two next.
You with me, Vlad? You with me? Why, a little bit. Why would Rachel weep for her children? It says right here, look at verse 15. Rachel is weeping for her children, plural, refusing to be comforted for her children because they were not found. Now that word children is not in the Hebrew. It actually reads, because he is not. It should not be, she's weeping for her children because her children are not found. It should be, she's weeping for her children because he is not. Jacob, Joseph, he is not.
Ah, okay.
Singular. I'm going to change that in the next edition.
Gotcha.
Is this amazing?
Yes.
Wow.
Is this amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So the actual Hebrew says, Rachel, Ima Rachel, is weeping because he is gone. He is not. Joseph's descent into Mitzrayim was a portent of what would occur in the end of days. If it had not been for the hatred that led to the betrayal of Joseph, the Egyptian slavery would never have happened. So therefore Rachel weeps for the loss of one boy, Yosef. Because who were her children? Who were Rachel's children? Benjamin and Yosef. But Benjamin was safe and sound with Ima Rachel. There's only one left for her to weep for. She's weeping for Ephraim, the 10 tribes of Israel, who are also in Jacob's trouble.
Oh, wow.
You must recognize homosexual marriage. You must kill babies through abortion. You must, because we're in the land of the pagans and the land of the nations, and we have not returned to Zion and our homeland and living under a constitution of Torah with a king as Mashiach Yeshua. So Rachel weeps for the loss of her son Joseph because it does not bode well for the rest of her children. Rachel weeps for her children, Daryl, because Joseph einenu. And because Joseph is missing, the 10 tribes are gone. They become the fullness of the Gentiles. It does not look good for the rest of the tribes of Israel because the 10 tribes of Israel are not. That's why they're called the 10 lost tribes. But here's the good news. In Messiah Yeshua, He's brought you back. He said, I have not come except, Matthew 15:24, for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And so he knew what you didn't know, what you could have known, but you didn't know because through generations of darkness and a veil, you didn't know that you have Israelite blood. And he said, Yeshua said in Matthew 15:24, I have only come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Amen.
So guess what? You are a DNA Israelite. And then even he takes that DNA and then grafts you back into Israel. And now you're twice Israel, spiritually and physically.
Exactly.
Amen.
Exactly.
Which is why you cry every time you see a menorah. Because Yahweh knew that he knew your bloodlines and you didn't know that. He knew what you didn't know. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
So Rachel is weeping for all her children because it hasn't gone well with Joseph.
Oh. Joseph.
Where's Joseph? Still in Egypt.
Wow.
And Joseph's not out of Egypt, so Jacob continues to cry.
Oh, okay.
Joseph's not out of Egypt, so the mother of Joseph, Rachel, continues to cry.
Wow. Amazing.
Someone's getting this.
Yes, thank you. Wow. Yahweh.
The child is gone.
Thank you for Friday.
The child is gone. But you are Joseph, the 10 tribes of non-Jewish Israel, who are back. But Joseph, as a person, is not back. They're in the church, they're Baptists, they're Methodists, they're Lutherans, they're agnostics, they're atheists. They're not back. And it doesn't bode well for the rest of her children.
Oh, wow.
Because even though Benjamin is back, he's not really back. He's in the synagogue, being taught that today is Rosh Hashanah, that today is not the Feast of Trumpets. So even Benjamin is not back. And until Joseph comes back, it doesn't bode well for the rest of her children. So let Mother Rachel weep. But Yahweh says this, in your weeping, remember the promise. And what is the promise? Refrain from weeping, Rachel, my daughter, 16. The voice of your weeping, your eyes and your tears, that weeping ministry that you have to see your sons come back to their Hebraic culture and disciples of Yeshua, not as Baptists and Lutherans, but as Talmidim of the real Messiah who live, you will be rewarded for your ministry of weeping and intercession. Keep weeping, refuse to be comforted, because your reward is coming. And that's exactly what Chris was talking about today in Watchmen. Weep and watch for both houses of Israel.
Amen.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Yahweh. And now we close. But this is a gradual closing, Tony, so don't pressure me.
This is the warm-up.
This is a gradual close.
First close.
Warm-up to the
This is like being stuck on the runway, but you know you're about to take off, but it doesn't always happen right away, especially if you're in St. Louis, Missouri. You don't want to be stuck on a runway in St. Louis, Missouri, honey.
Trust me when I tell you.
I'll tell you what.
It is living.
It is bad. It gets to the point you can't even breathe in those planes. And now with the swine flu running around, could you imagine being stuck on the runway in Missouri? That's a show me state, all right.
Unclean.
Dad,
Show me a mask so I can breathe.
Dad. Oh.
Hallelujah. All right, let's leave the hub. Let's leave the runway in St. Louis. Now let's consider how this passage is quoted in the infant narrative of the Gospel of Matthew. Listen, after the Magi from the east visited the infant, the Yeled Yeshua, they did not report back to Herod the location of the child. Infuriated, Herod sent soldiers to Bethlehem, which is near Rachel's tomb in Ramah, near Rachel's tomb, outside of Bethlehem. Rivka was just there, outside of Bethlehem. Hence, this sad event invokes the prophetic lament of Rachel over her children. As we learned earlier, Rachel did not weep because her children, plural, were gone. Instead, she wept because her child, singular, was gone. So the Tanakh tells us that Rachel is weeping for her Bachor, or her child. Who was the child? Joseph. But then we go over to the Brit Chadashah, the New Testament, and she hadn't stopped crying.
Wow.
New Testament, same crying. Same tears. You with me, right?
Yes, sir.
So why is Iman Rachel still crying? Mashiach has come. Shouldn't she stop crying? Mashiach! Lachem. And by the way, time out for a wardrobe malfunction.
I don't want to know.
So she's still crying. Now when you read the word magi, so coming out of the church, we see who are the magi? Magicians from Babylonia. Magicians, magi. Magi. So we were in the church, that's what we were taught, you know. The magi, come visit the Jesus boy. The magi. You mean as in magic? Yeah, man. They were practicing my witchcraft. Nonsense. The magi, the Hebrew word for preacher, is the Hebrew word magid. Exactly what Chris was telling them before. Magid means a storyteller. Daniel had trained these magids in Babylon to tell the story of the stars and the moon and the sun. And they knew the King of the Jews was being born in Bethlehem of Judea, because it is written in Micah 5:2, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be the smallest of the clans of Yehudah, out of thee he shall come forth to me, who is to be a ruler in Israel, whose goings forth has been from old, from everlasting. Memutzatav mekedem memeolam. Whose coming out did not start at Bethlehem, but his coming to Bethlehem, mekedem memeolam, from the days before eternity began. So these magi were Daniel's disciples. Does that put a little bit of a different spin on it? So Daniel pointed them to Yeshua. So when they came, they said, we don't want to be Daniel's disciples. He taught us how to read the Moadim and the sun and the stars. And now we're coming to be the King Messiah's disciples. The exile must be over. Because when the King Messiah comes, Rachel and Jacob will stop crying. But they're still crying. Boy, I'm preaching good today.
Amen.
Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
So Rachel did not weep because her children were gone. She wept because Joseph, her single son, was being mourned. Let me read this for you and we'll bring it to a close. What does it say? Rabbi Lichtenstein says this. What does it say he is no more? In the singular form, it speaks previously. In the plural form, where it says weeping for her children. Matthew interprets this verse to mean that Yeshua, don't miss this, who had been down in Egypt and sought after, is no longer there. That Yeshua who has been sought after is no longer in Judea. Rather, he has fled down to the pit of Egypt. You getting this now? Which is why Herod murdered all the children in Bethlehem, up to 2 years old. Why did Herod kill so many children up to 2 years old? On account of the fact that the king was missing. The king. Who's the king? Was missing. Because the Malach Yahweh, the angel of the Lord, told him, take the child and go down to Egypt, because Herod will seek the young child to kill him. Can I hear a good amen? So why did Yeshua go down to Egypt? Because the exile would not come to an end. The way Matthew uses this verse, disconnect that, honey, please. The way Matthew uses this verse, Rachel is not weeping merely because of the slaughter of the children in Bethlehem, but because Yeshua, like Joseph, had departed to Egypt. And the exile wasn't over. You getting this right?
Yes, sir.
So Matthew records, listen, Matthew records this lament of Yaakov and Rachel over Joseph and applies it to Yeshua. The significance of this is profound. Just as the descent of Joseph to Egypt was a sign that the exile was going to occur, the departure of Yeshua from Israel to Egypt was a prophetic pronouncement that the exile would follow soon. That's why she hadn't stopped crying. Do I need to say that again, Nadine? When Joseph went down to Egypt, Jacob refused to be comforted because he knew the exile of Israel in Egypt would begin and would last for how many years? 430. Yeshua going down to Egypt was not a sign that the redemption and the exile was going to end. It was a sign that the exile of the Jewish people and the Ephraimite people was about to begin afresh for 2,000 years. And here we are 2,000 years later, and the exile has not come to an end.
Wow. That's awesome.
And that's why she's still crying.
I never thought about it like that.
And that's why Jacob is still crying.
My goodness.
Because the Yeshua going to Egypt was the sign that the exile was going to begin. So the rabbis say, of course, Yeshua is not the Messiah. Because when the Messiah comes, the exile of our people in the nations will come to an end. So how can Yeshua be the Messiah when the exile began rather than came to an end? And that's where you need to know how to witness. Our exile came to an end, did it not, through Yeshua?
Yes.
But the rest of our people remain in darkness, do they not?
Yes.
That's how you answer that. We won't go there now.
Wow.
So the departure of Yeshua to Mitzrayim was a prophetic pronouncement that the exile of 2,000 years and Rome and Titus, who were going to destroy the temple in 70 CE, was about to follow the slaughter of Rachel's children. The infants who lived in Bethlehem around Rachel's tomb was a prophetic image of the destruction in 70 CE of Jerusalem.
Wow.
The fact that the destruction of the children in Bethlehem was taking place was a prophecy that Jerusalem's children would also be exiled and killed and then exiled, some of them. But that Yeshua, Rachel's child, like Joseph, would go down to Egypt, and Yeshua was not coming to bring the end of the exile. He was coming to throw Israel back into exile. You know why? You should know why. Because he said in the book of Luke, he said, behold, I would have gathered you as a hen, as a chicken gathers her what? Her offspring. But you would not. Behold, your house, the temple, is left to you desolate. If they do this in a green tree, what will they do when the Messiah and the green tree is not here?
Wow.
And he said, you will go into all the nations and be hated by all nations. Why? Because you did not perceive the time of your visitation.
Wow.
See, Yahweh knew that Israel would not receive the time of Yeshua's visitation. And the fact that he went down to Egypt was a sign that the exile was about to begin all over again. We went down to Egypt. Yahweh redeemed us from Egypt. But lo and behold, because we rejected Yeshua, we rejected his Torah, we rejected his ministry, we wound right back up from where Yahweh took us up. And Rachel continues to weep because Jacob is still in tribulation.
Oh, wow.
Don't let them lie to you. Jacob's trouble doesn't begin with the last 7 years of the exile. We are in tribulation now, but the tribulation will become greater, thus the great tribulation. So why should Rachel and Yaakov stop weeping when they know what a lot of people don't know, that we are still in the exile and all things have not been restored? Can I hear a good?
Amen.
I mean a good amen.
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 Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And one final thought. I told you it would be gradual. Don't vary.
Second close.
Third.
That works.
So the question is, does the Einenu is no longer here, is not. Does it refer to Joseph or Yeshua? Does it refer to Joseph or does it refer to Yeshua?
Yes.
Yes.
The answer is both. Enenu refers to both, but there's a third enenu. How many times is the term refuse to be comforted used in the Tanakh?
3 times.
Bereshit, 37 is it, Governor?
Yeah, 37, 35.
Tehillim what? 77, 1 and 2. And Yirmiyahu 31, 14 and 15.
Right.
3 refusing to be comforted. So the term he is not, Enenu, refers to Yeshua and Joseph, but something else. And I want you to see this, and I promise we're done. We blow the shofar, and that's it. Bereshit 39, 2. Is anyone enjoying?
Amen.
Amen.
Bereshit 39 and 2. There's something else that's Enenu. Rivka, there's something else that's Enenu. Some of you thinking, yeah, it is not. What is not? Dinner. No, I'm not talking about dinner. That's not what I'm talking about. Tehillim 39 and 2.
Bereshit.
I'm sorry. Bereshit 39 and 2. And Yahweh was with Yosef. Even though Yosef had descended into Mitzrayim and was not, as far as Jacob was concerned, and Reuben. And he was a prosperous man, and he was in the Bait, the house of his master, the Mitzri. But what I want you to focus in on is the beginning of verse 2. Genesis 30.